So let me get started with transformational change definition and dimensions, but a little bit before that, I would like to, and I promise this is just one slide, to go through a little bit of the history of the TCLP, the Transformational Change Learning Partnership. I see a lot of familiar faces here that have been in a lot of our activities, which is pretty exciting, but just behind the rationale of having the TCLP is if you see, for instance, the CIF impact statement, the first three words about it are accelerating transformational change. So when you have such a complex concept within even your impact statement, you sort of also have the mandate to work around defining it and work to build a community around it that they can jointly define it and have multiple methods and concepts around it. So the TCLP was launched in 2017 to enable collaborative learning on this concept in particularly, transformational change. And it has had multiple ways to approach its community of practice with multiple work streams. In the past, it had interest groups where there were thematic-based, but resilience and others. As of now, we have, for instance, as well, what we call our monthly working sessions, where we basically share a draft of our knowledge products and our activities to our community of practice, and then we expect to have some feedback in these knowledge sessions, in these monthly sessions, and then we build on that feedback to continue to construct all these different concepts about transformational change that we'll tackle in the next slides. But this community of practice, it's over 900 stakeholders as of now, with around 360 different institutions all over the world, a lot of which are here present, and I'm really glad to see. It includes every type of stakeholder that you can think within the climate finance architecture, from NDVs to donor countries, NGO finance institutions, private sectors, and others. And in multiple, again, knowledge products and learning activities, we're going to see a few later on, but basically it tries to constantly build about transformational change in some derivatives. For instance, transformational climate finance, which has to be different, it has to be more inclusive, it has to be more impactful in different ways. We also have evaluative approaches to transformational change that we'll see later. It's different, and this one of the goals of this workshop is different to just think about evaluation, and then to think about evaluation from a transformational change perspective. There are additional certain steps and frameworks that we have to think about. And this is some of the work that the Transformational Change Learning Partnership has been working through since 2017. So let's try to get to transformational change as a concept. I think this is one of the most illustrative slides because it's such a complex concept that it might slow us down sometimes when we're thinking about how to approach it. So this is just a clear, it's a climate action tracker table with emissions. You can see, for instance, as of now, the historical and greenhouse gas emissions. The current policies would take us basically to this point here above. The pledges and targets that hopefully at least we fulfill will take us a little bit down here. But that's still very far away from the 1.5 Celsius goals that we're targeting with the Paris Agreement and other international agreements. So what are the differences between those two, between those three lines? The first one is, so basically from the current policies to the pledges and targets, of course that's good. We're reducing GHG emissions, we're decelerating GHG emissions, so that's what we're calling incremental changes. However, that's not enough. That's by far not enough, as you can see in that picture. So in order to turn that incremental change to actually achieve the 1.5 Celsius emissions gaps, that's where we're talking about transformational change. And that transformational change has to be way deeper and way more systemic, as we're going to see, compared to incremental change. And that's where some of the challenges, because as of now, the pledge is still falling way behind, so we have to all build, and that's part of the TCLP, is to increase and maximize the transformational intent of all its different members through these frameworks and through these different activities and products, knowledge products. So the definition of transformational change, to get to that, to close that gap to 1.5 Celsius, is basically a fundamental change in systems relevant to climate action with large-scale positive impacts that shift and accelerate the trajectory of climate neutral, inclusive, resilient, equitable, and sustainable development pathways. And here, to define, to mention that this definition has not been self-imposed, it has been collaboratively built through the community of practice through a long process of years, and not just this definition, dimensions that we're going to see, the guidance questions and the signals, these concepts and metrics that we've built all together through the past 7 years since 2017 have led to a framework that, and it's also not the only transformational change framework, there are others out there, but this one at least has led to this specific definition that tackles different dimensions, even on its own definition. But the 5 dimensions that the Transformational Change Learning Partnership has identified through its community of practice are the ones that you see on the screen. For change to be transformational, it has to be 5 things simultaneously. It has to be relevant, it has to have speed considerations, scale considerations, target systemic change, and have adaptive sustainability. Relevance basically means an alignment with an attentiveness to goals and in context of time. I'm going to go through very simple questions later on the next slide, but systemic change, fundamental shifts in systems and structures and functions. This is crucial to close that gap, but it also needs to be fast enough, and that speed needs to be correlated to the urgency of the specific change that you're trying to build. It had to have scale, and scale can be horizontal, geographically speaking, about how many different geographies are you targeting, or different areas are you targeting. It can be vertical as well, when you're talking about integrating local to national or national to local initiatives. And it can be also what we call depth scale, which is basically mainstreaming certain concepts of transformational change throughout different communities to shift certain paradigms and tackle transformational change instead of incremental. And then you have adaptive sustainability, which talks about robustness, resilience, and adaptiveness of change, which tackles, for instance, capacity building, tackles institutions that were created to sustain the change that you're trying to maintain, coordination mechanisms among agencies and others. So these are some of the evaluative questions that the Transformational Change Learning Partnership have done. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I know Team is going to talk about them in the next session. But this is a simplified way of seeing all these questions. There are, as you're also going to see later on, way more detailed templates and frameworks of all these questions that will tackle, even by, for instance, CIF program. Different CIF programs, as Neha mentioned as well, they have different questions per se that will tackle specifically with relevance, for instance, for renewable energy integration, or specific systemic change for accelerating coal transition, or for nature, people, climate, or nature-based solutions as well. But in a nutshell, relevance is about what was needed, what was planned, what was accomplished. I know at least three things aligning. This is fundamental because if you make a change that was needed, was not needed, then it probably is not creating transformational change. If you create a change that was not planned, then you probably cannot attribute transformational change. And if it wasn't accomplished, then probably most likely there wasn't a change. So this is crucial to align those 3 concepts. Systemic change, what systems change and how, and this implies as well certainly signaling the boundaries around the changes that we want to change, and who was involved and how. And this is fundamental, and the involvement of crucial stakeholders and inclusivity here is crucial not only for systemic change, but we'll see also for adaptive sustainability. It's most likely transformational change won't keep itself through time if it wasn't inclusive enough in the moment that it was designed, planned, and implemented. Then you have speed. Once again, it's the rate of change appropriate given the urgency of the that you're trying to create. And scale, once again, you can have horizontal, which is geographical, vertical, which is local to national, national to local, or in-depth in terms of mainstreaming certain concepts related to climate change. And adaptive sustainability is, once again, what capacities and institutions were built to sustain this change through time for future change overall. And just to finalize, and I know that these were all by Mike later, so I won't get into too much detail here either, but the objective of having this transformational change framework and trying to understand what different evaluative questions you can build through this framework in this particular context is relevant because it's fundamental for us that observers can use these concepts and in order to enhance their participation through CIF, and not just observers, but everyone. And we're building this as a public knowledge as well to enhance their processes through CIF, through CIF's program and project lifecycle, but as well through their own work and daily life. And there you can see the different evaluative learning moments that we're as we're calling them, but you can also evaluation and learning. These are also project and program life cycles and the different evaluative and learning questions that you might have in each one of these different moments. So here you have all the way from diagnostic evaluation, that's when you're developing the investment. You have project design as well, and that's where you have to make sure that the projects align with an investment plan. And then you have program implementation, program closeouts, and program reviews. In this case, this is the case of the renewable and integration program, that's why it says there. But you can have different approaches to evaluations, as well as was mentioned by Amanda. You can do ex-ante, ex-post, and these are some of the concepts. If you contextualize it within the CIF program project's lifecycle, this is more or less how it looks like: diagnostic evaluation, design evaluation, implementation evaluation, impact evaluation, and systemic evaluation. This is through CIF's project and program lifecycle. So with that, I will like to end my presentation, but happy to have any questions or doubts or answer any of them related to this. I know I'm getting between you and the coffee break as well, so I don't want to take too much time, but happy to answer any questions regarding just definitions, dimensions, and others. Yes, please.